All right, we are now live. Welcome to the show, everyone. Violence seems to be a continuing theme in this country of late. The mainstream media has tried very hard to blame both sides for it, while timidly and quietly acknowledging that left-wing violence is at least on the rise. Though I think we all know that it was never as rare as Democrats would like us to believe. We will also be talking about optimism for the future of Gen Z conservatism. We are going to be talking about all of this and more in episode 512 of the In the Tank podcast.
Yeah, Charlie, I want to thank you specifically because I used to be a Bernie Sanders supporter. I used to be a Democratic Socialist. It was one of your videos that really woke me up, and you're an inspiration.
Wow.
You're awesome. Thank you.
You are why I do what I do.
All right, everyone. Welcome to the In the Tank podcast. I am Linnea Lueken, your host. We also have Jim Lakely, Vice President and Director of Communications at the Heartland Institute, Sam Karnick, Senior Fellow at the Heartland Institute, and Chris Talgo, Editorial Director and Socialism Research Fellow. We are also joined by a very special guest who I guess we had dropped in the beginning there, our own wonderful communications department intern, Eann Tang, who is enjoying some liberal tears at this moment. So how is everybody doing this week? Eann, you especially. How are you?
Good. Thank you. Thanks so much for bringing me on, and especially like having the audience to see what I look like right now. Usually I don't show people that clip because I don't think I have a lot of hair and I don't think I look so good. But, Charlie passed away. Very heartbreaking. I would bring that clip up. And thank you for giving me the chance to share my experience as well.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to hearing your story here. I loved hearing that clip of you talking about how you were a Bernie Sanders supporter. We're going to have to kick you out for that. Just kidding. But we'll talk about how you got here from there. Before we get started, you guys, as always, if you want to support the show, you can go to heartland.org/inthetank and donate there. You can also click the thumbs up to like the video, remembering that sharing it helps us to break through some of YouTube's suppression that may or may not be on the way out, but we'll see. Still, don't hesitate from clicking like and sharing this video. Even just leaving a comment helps us too. If you're an audio listener, you can help us out by leaving a nice review. I want to know how everyone else's weeks are going so far. It's Thursday already. Feels like Tuesday to me. I don't know why. But Jim, how are you?
I'm fine. The more I prepared for this show this week, the angrier I got. So there might be a Jim rant coming in here. I wrote a lot of notes. I probably won't get through them all, but God, it has been a rough couple of weeks. And, obviously the loss of Charlie Kirk, we're still getting over that. But the behavior of the Democratic Party, prominent Democrats in the media, and the continual violence on the left. It seems like there's 3 a week now. I mean, this is completely crazy, and there is a reason for that, which we will get into.
Absolutely. Sam, how are you doing?
Doing just great. Thanks, Linnea. It's been actually a very busy week for me too, developing, promoting the free market solutions to the problems of the day.
Awesome. And Chris, what have you got going on? I guess it's football season now, so everyone's getting a little bit competitive probably in the office too, right?
All I care about is the Bears. Bears look great. Last Sunday, they're going to play the Raiders this Sunday, and I think we're going to go to 2-2. But on more important topics, I know that we're not going to have time to do this today, but Donald Trump's speech at the UN yesterday was unbelievable. And I really hope that everyone saw it and that his message really hit home, because everything that he was talking about with, this crazy immigration stuff, the crazy, green energy stuff is ruining these countries. And he made that very clear. And I really hope that hits home. So you shall see.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone, if you haven't seen that speech, go look it up. We had this planned, to go over a little bit of the leftist violence issue and talk about Eann's experience as a conservative on college campuses today. So we had to kind of pick and choose what stories we covered, but it's definitely worth it to check out Trump beating the heck out of those UN squares.
Yeah. And tomorrow at this very same time on this very same channel on the Climate Realism Show, that is the main topic tomorrow. I have cut 3 minutes and 33 seconds of that speech. Believe me, it was 6 minutes just on the climate stuff, and these were the great highlights. So if you want to see it and get our commentary on it, we'll see you Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern.
Just one last thing on that, and I don't know if, Jim, you're going to go into this tomorrow, but there were 3 things that happened which were really disturbing. The escalator just did not work as soon as Donald Trump and Melania stepped on it. The teleprompter, of course, broke as soon as Donald Trump stepped up to the to give his speech. And then third, as Katie Pavlich pointed out, the audio was noticeably lower during Donald Trump's speech. And I've also heard that a lot of the translators could not, get it through. So a lot of people just didn't even hear his speech. So just goes to show that the UN is a really corrupt place. And there was actually reporting a week ahead of that some of the staffers there were going to mess up the elevators and the escalators, and look what happened. So I do not think that was a coincidence. And I really hope that they do get to the bottom of it.
That was dangerous. You can't stop it. He was a sitting duck out there. If anybody in the UN wanted to take him out, there needs to be accountability for that. Probably won't be because it's the UN. But.
Absolutely. Well, please, that was a great pitch for tomorrow's show, Jim. So please join us tomorrow on the Climate Realism Show at the same time. So our first topic this week, we're gonna hit it right off with Unhinged, and the kind of topic theme of this section here is the left violent? I think so. And is it a both sides issue? So we're going to start the show here with this lovely clip just to set the tone. That White Dudes for Harris clip is I need a trigger warning for that. Anyway, these are some. We're about to show you guys a video of some left-wing protesters striking at a Trump piñata, I guess, until its head comes off. It's lovely. Can we get the video, Andy?
Trump, escucha. Trump, escucha. Trump, escucha. Dale duro. Trump, escucha, estamos en la lucha. Trump, escucha.
I think Orwell in 1984 had a commentary on how women were always the most aggressive party line towers. This is nice. Nice to see the Democrats are turning down the rhetoric here. But this is like a kind of pale, almost cute example considering the actual murders that have happened in the last few weeks and the fact that Donald Trump was, had 2 assassination attempts on his life, last year. So ICE agents and detainees that were just being escorted have been shot at and the detainees killed. Some kind of an explosive was put underneath a Fox van in Nevada. Charlie Kirk was murdered. It's out of control out there right now. The far left magazine, The Atlantic, admits that left-wing terrorism is on the rise. And by their own study that they conducted, they say, which I think they might have included, I didn't get to look over the whole study, but they might have included jihadism on the right, which is kind of how they tend to fluff the numbers in a lot of these studies. But they say that left-wing terrorism has actually spiked, especially since Trump got into office in 2016. So, Eann, we wanted to have you on today to talk a little bit about the college campus experience in the year 2025. So when I was in school around the time that Trump was elected the first time, it was really rough even then to be a campus conservative. We were always worried about left-wing violence. It was really hard to get any kind of an event planned because the university wanted like ridiculous amounts of security for any right-wing demonstration that we tried to do. People would tear up our signs when we tabled for college Republicans. Happened all the time. Nothing ever came of it when we, reported that kind of activity to the campus. I remember there was this one time I was tabling with two other people, and like a 6-foot-something transgender student was getting very heated and demanding that we like take down our stuff in the student union. We said no, and we just kind of like waited for the situation to fizzle out, and it did eventually fizzle out, but it was crazy back then. Does it strike you as kind of crazy now when you're told that this kind of thing is a both sides issue, especially when it comes to like the campus level?
Yeah, first off, I want to say, the clip you show, it's how the left wants America to have unity, right? So hitting at a Donald Trump piñata. And I want to say props to you, Linnea. Like you were doing in 2015. I actually see myself as quite lucky already. Like I entered college in 2022, and then I just graduated in 2025, and then so I avoided the peak COVID crazy era, and then second half of my college is when the culture has really started to turn conservative. Trump won, but I want to kind of recap on like my reaction of Kirk's murder first, because like first of all, I was so if the audience don't know, like when it happened, I was asleep because I'm in Asia right now, and then so when my dad told me that it happened, I was in like disbelief because I thought Kirk was just in Japan or Korea a few days ago, and I thought he got killed by the North Koreans or he got killed by China. No way. But then when he told me, and then I opened up my phone, it's like flooded with DMs of people telling me that yo Charlie Kirk is dead, and then just like videos of it happening, and then I was in complete shock that I don't even know how to react. And then part of the reason I'm stressing this is because I was in such complete shock, but at the same time I saw it coming already, meaning that like when my university, when we hosted Charlie Kirk here, the first thing we had to deal with, it's not like the venue, it's not like multimedia. The first thing was security, and in fact most of our budget went to security. And before the event even started, the police at our school had to do a bomb sweep of the event. And just me telling my friends in Taiwan here that hosting a political event at my university requires a bomb sweep, and then they were all in like complete shock. Like they were all like, what is up with politics in America? And really it's like it just like really annoys me how the media points out, like keep saying it's a both sides issue, because I can guarantee you this, like if there's ever a left-wing figure that go to any college campuses in America, you will never ever see any college Republicans chapters, any Turning Point chapter, any conservative group chapters preparing to host some sort of protest. Instead, as conservatives, we know that like protesting, like what good does it do, And then we know that we can actually, not to say beat them by logic, but we know that like even if we don't completely agree, we can come to a middle ground to agree and disagree, and that's how it should be. That's how politics should be. So yeah, it just pisses me off that the media always frame this as like a both sides violence issue. They'll probably say this is like violence, just me drinking from this, but it's whatever.
Well, and that's kind of part of it too, right? The violence, the whole push on the left to say that words are violence, and so then they feel like it's necessary or appropriate for them to respond with real violence, because they've been told for so long that if somebody, says no to you, basically, they're like denying your right to exist or something. And Sam, we get a lot of tone policing on the right from our own allies in this. We talked a little bit about it last week, how spineless so many of our representatives are. They're doing the whole, both sides tour on many of them are anyway, when they're cornered when leaving their offices during the day. But so the last few weeks have seen a flurry of appalling, but not overly surprising and not even unprecedented violence from the left. And they are way too comfortable acting like this. And people on the left who aren't engaging in violence, but are kind of either implicitly or directly encouraging it, are way too comfortable doing so. So what is your position on all of this then?
Thanks, Linnea. The people on the right who are sort of weak-kneed about this are really doing the same thing that the on a different scale and in a different form, but the same thing that the anti-police movement was doing in the late 2010s and through the 2020s, where the idea was that, well, we'll all just relax a little, we'll let things go, and when some people do things that are just beyond the pale and wrong, we won't call them on it because that's mean. And so what happens is that the other side, the side that is doing that sort of thing, gets emboldened, obviously, because they can do whatever they like and nothing happens. And it's been decades since conservatives, people on the right, could speak freely about pretty much anything. It's been a long time since conservatives could really speak. You could say that it is since the mid 1960s that the clamps have been going down tighter and tighter. And so when you have that kind of captive mentality, it's as if they're performing Stockholm syndrome behavior, where they're loving the enemy and finding excuses for them and finding their own allies, their political allies, to be wrong and beyond the pale and needing to be silenced. So what happens here is that we have to take this seriously, and people on the right really need to start to unify. I think the unity that we need is unity around the idea of America, because we have a lot of unity against America right now. And it's not just abroad, it's within this country. So if they're so unified, we need to unify in favor of America, and the David Frenches of the world and the Bulwark writers of the world have got to really get on it. They've got to make a choice. Either you're for America, what America stands for and always has stood for, incompletely and imperfectly, but what the American way is. You're either for that or you're against it. And one side is very, very strongly against it. And they're very unified in their opposition to America. We need some unity in promoting America.
Absolutely. Jim, I know you have no strong feelings whatsoever on this topic.
Yeah, I have such lack of strong feelings, I hardly even know where to start. So well, I mean, first of all, it's the gaslighting that we're getting from the media. There have been 4 left-wing acts of violence in just the last 2 weeks, and that's only if you start the clock at the assassination of Charlie Kirk, in which the media tried to convince us for days. For days, they pushed the lie that Charlie Kirk was murdered by, as Jimmy Kimmel put it, one of their own, meaning a MAGA person or an extremely right, somebody who's so far to the right that he thinks Charlie Kirk is a leftist and deserves to die. They pushed that lie on purpose for days. And to the point where I guess Jimmy Kimmel believed it and pushed it again on his own show. But, so one of the arguments here is that as the right, the other thing Jimmy Kimmel said is that the right is trying to score political points on it. No, that is not what the right is trying to do. What the right is trying to do is to finally get through to the mainstream media in this country, the legacy media in this country, and the Democratic Party to stop with all of this, what do they call it, stochastic terrorism stuff, which is inciting mentally ill people who believe all of these lies that have been told for a decade to take action to save the country. So you have all this rhetoric. So their own argument, by the way, which makes it even worse, is this. So all this rhetoric about ICE being the Gestapo. Tim Walz said that. I saw a clip earlier on X this week, literally 3 straight minutes of Democrats calling ICE the Gestapo. Trump is a fascist and literally Hitler. MAGA are fascists and brown shirts. Charlie Kirk is a racist and a hate monger. President Biden called half this country semi-fascists who will destroy democracy if they win the election. Every single Democratic elected official has been saying the same thing over and over and over for a decade. And the media has been trumpeting all of this for a decade without any pushback. And every late night show has done the same thing. And that this is nothing. And now they say that all of that has nothing to do with any of this epidemic of left-wing attacks and murders of people on the right. I will remind you, these are the same people who say Donald Trump inspired an insurrection on January 6th. Now, never mind that he told his supporters to protest peacefully and patriotically. So there's really no comparison. But in any way, but by their delusional logic, that applies to Trump. And then all of this actual decades-long demonization of non-leftists by our media and Democrat Party is not an incitement to violence and not the cause of it. First of all, it can't be both ways. And we're all very certain, we know it only runs one way. For crying out loud, the media criticized Trump for criticizing, they characterized Trump as criticizing leftist media as fake news and insulting them deservedly for engaging in propaganda and not journalism. They said that was not only a direct threat on the First Amendment, but a direct threat on their very lives. He was putting their lives at risk, especially the people on CNN, by calling them fake news. And even after all of this, even after Charlie Kirk is dead, even as they continued to smear him before he was even buried, they have the media and the talking heads in this country have no introspection. They take no responsibility for toning down the rhetoric, no matter how often. And it's often that a lefty believes these lies and worse, and then goes down, Discord rabbit holes. And then they take up arms and murder people who have differing political views. I will just close with this, because this is what really needs to happen. And if this doesn't happen, then you know that the Democratic Party and the legacy media in this country are not serious about trying to save lives and tone down the political rhetoric in this country. They need to look into the camera, look directly into the camera and say, we were wrong. Trump is not a fascist. He's not Hitler. His supporters are not fascists in brown shirts. Those were just stories we made up for political advantage. And furthermore, the election of Donald Trump is, and the political rise of his supporters in MAGA do not represent a threat to our democracy. You should be able to see that for yourself, by the way, because the country is still here. It's still operating as normal. Elections are still going to happen. They're still legitimate. And Trump is not acting as a tyrant. He is exercising his legitimate presidential powers as every other president before him has done. This is not unusual. And violence is never the answer to our political differences. And if you are violent and you're harming people and you're killing people, causing property damage, rioting, targeting ICE facilities, all this kind of stuff that you deem direct action, none of that is legitimate political action, and it must stop, and it must stop now. Unless and until we see Democrats, prominent Democrats, stare into the camera and media members stare into the camera and say that, I would say repeatedly for like a month, they are not serious about stopping this. And the only conclusion to come is that they want this. This is the result they want. That's why they say what they say. And that's why they downplay, gaslight, and have no guilt whatsoever about the destruction and the death of people who are not on the left.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris, I've seen a lot of people, I've seen several even kind of larger figures in the media say things like, they looked at the Charlie Kirk memorial, for example, which was an amazing event. I can't believe that was streamed live for so many people to see, and say like, I don't understand this culture from MAGA. I don't understand what this is. This is weird. This is unnatural. How far apart have we gotten that's like that? Just like a basic patriotic rally is horrifying to these people.
That's a great question. I'm going to go way farther back on this though. I remember back in the 1990s, we had Ruby Ridge, we had Waco, we had the Atlanta Olympic bombing. We had Timothy McVeigh in Oklahoma City. And the narrative throughout the 1990s was right-wing violence. And there were so many of these crazy right-wing groups that wanted to take over the government. And I think that has been perpetuated. And I remember probably 2010s maybe, when the FBI was saying that the biggest threat in the United States of America is like racist, right-wing white nationalists. And then when you look at the evidence, it didn't really bear that out. And, I just feel like this myth has been perpetuated going on 30, 40 years, almost my entire lifetime, when you just look at the facts. And this goes back to, the Tea Party. This goes, back to almost all the right, like anti-left rallies. They're not violent. They just aren't. They're peaceful. They're peaceful protests because the First Amendment says that we can do that. The left in my lifetime has taken a different tack. It's much more violent tack. I think this goes back to the Alinsky days. I think this goes back to the Weather Underground and a lot of this 1960s really radical stuff. I don't think it's gotten, I don't think it's reduced. I think it's gotten much worse. I think that there's many reasons why. I think that a lot of those left-wing radicals are now professors at universities, and they are just straight up indoctrinating millions of American students. I think it's also happening in high schools and even in middle schools. Culture is toxic, and we got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, that was one thing that struck me, was realizing that, a lot of the purportedly, one way or another, like anti-government, which they always slot into the right, whether or not the rest of their philosophy matches up with the traditional, like American GOP type person. They always slot it into the right if it's anti-government. But
but Terry Nichols and Timothy McVeigh and these whack jobs were not creatures of the right. They were total anarchists. If anything, they were like Antifa, from the 90s. So I don't buy that, that conclusion that they're making, that anything where it's like, pro anarchy or pro, like let's get rid of the federal government because they are infringing on these liberties, which is one of the big things that happened back in Ruby Ridge. That is not a classic right stance. That is an anarchy stance, and the anarchists are much more actually on the left than they are on the right. So just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, well, the point that I was getting to was that it seems like those guys suffered for their crimes quite a bit more than anyone from like Weather Underground. People bombed the Pentagon, bombed also, like real serious violence, not just
even the Unabomber. The Unabomber was a hardcore leftist, an environmental nutcase. And just one other thing, just to kind of put a close on this. I vividly remember the Oklahoma City bombing and all those things. There was no right-wing, celebrations. No one saying, yeah, he was right. It was universally panned. And here we're not seeing that. We're seeing a lot of moral relativism and a lot of people saying, well, it's justified because he was a racist, even though obviously he wasn't. And, Jim and Donnie and I had a long discussion about this very topic a couple of weeks in the office. And I, had I had to admit to Jim and to Donnie that I was flat out dead wrong about this a couple, I don't know, maybe like 10 months or so ago, maybe Jim, I don't know, like a year ago, maybe, when we had a similar conversation. And, Jim, I've been thinking a lot about that. And I think one of the reasons why I came to that initial conclusion was because I thought people have agency. And I'm kind of thinking now that maybe people's agency is being reduced because of social media and so many other things where they're not thinking for themselves. They're not really engaging in, deep-rooted, logical, ration-based thinking about a topic. They just take, the superficial like slogan and just run with it. And that's really dangerous.
Well, I mean, we've talked about this in the past. And why do people engage in propaganda? Because propaganda works. It's not that they don't do it just for their own self-satisfaction. It's because in propaganda, the key to it is the relentlessness of it. And that's what's the key. And we've had for a decade relentless propaganda from everywhere you can possibly imagine. demonizing people who are not on the left, people, conservatives. And I know we've already gone too long on this topic, and I certainly have gone on too long. I will just add one more bit of fact on this. The Oklahoma City bombing, Bill Clinton came out and blamed Rush Limbaugh for that. So this has been going on for 30 years of this idea of the rise of right-wing violence, and that it's to blame, the blame for that is, a guy's talk show. So that wasn't true then, but it is true that, propaganda works. That's why it's applied, and it's been applied in a complete flood the zone level when it comes to, ginning up these sorts of things. Did the media did they want Charlie Kirk to get killed? Actually, no, because it would actually works against their purposes, because as Eann will attest, it has hardened the resolve of a lot of young people around the world to stand up for their principles and push back and counter, leftist control and leftist everything. So that's not what they wanted, but they do want basically everything else short of murder. I mean, look at how they like the famous, it's now a meme, the famous shot of a reporter for CNN where there's buildings literally burning behind him, and the chyron on the bottom, on the lower third, says fiery but peaceful protest. If that's not more proof that this is what they want, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, well,
I think they want everything short of murder that will be traced directly back to them. They don't mind if people are killed and you don't know who did it.
I still think this is the outcome of moral relativism, and everything can be justified if they say, well, Charlie Kirk was a fascist or a Hitler or this or that, so then anything is justified. It's the loss of principle, and there's political reasons for that, but there's also I know we don't want to get into this side of the discussion, but family and just morals. Who are instilling those morals?
Yeah, well, I don't want to spin off, but you just made me think of something, Chris, which is that maybe we have to come to terms with the fact that on the left, it's not a lack of principle, it's that their principles include right-wingers getting killed. I mean, it's pretty bad out there, but I'm going to wildly shift course on this conversation and on the podcast that we're doing right now. So, Jim, I was wondering if you would be so kind as to take the time to thank one of our wonderful sponsors today.
You're forcing me to do a very, very dramatic attitude shift, but
yeah,
not be yelling and screaming about it. But I'll do my best, because I want to talk to you a little bit about the sponsor of this show and the Climate Realism Show, so the two live stream podcasts of the Heartland Institute, and that is Advisor Metals. If you listen to a lot of conservative shows, like everybody on this podcast does, you hear tons of pitches about buying gold and silver and other precious metals. And there are tons of companies out there, but we want to tell you why you should trust our sponsor, Advisor Metals, and it's the man who runs the company, Ira Brashatsky. Ira is the managing member of Advisor Metals. He does not employ high-pressure tactics or deceptive marketing ploys like many of those in big gold. He also doesn't deal in so-called rare coins. So when you buy gold and other precious metals from Advisor Metals, you're dealing in quality bullion. And that is so much better when the time comes to liquidate this very valuable physical asset. And when you buy from Advisor Metals, you will have your investment sent directly and discreetly to your home. Also, Ira is advertising on our program, both of our programs, because he is an America First patriot. He does not donate to Democrats or their causes. He refuses to work with proxies of the Chinese Communist Party, and he, like us, abhor the machinations of the World Economic Forum. And so that makes us very proud to count him as a sponsor. So if you want to diversify your investment portfolio, if you want to back up your IRA with real physical bullion and precious metals, please go to climaterealismshow.com/metals and leave your information there, and Ira or one of his team will get in contact with you and make the whole process very easy. That's climaterealismshow.com/metals, and be sure to tell them who sent you, because you will be helping out us in this program and the Heartland Institute while you're helping yourself.
Thank you so much, Jim. I know that was difficult for you to shift your mindset there. But there really is no better time to do this ad read, because all of the topics today are infuriating in one way or another. But all right, so our second coverage today, you guys, we're hitting on some news that's coming out about Google or Alphabet's censorship, which we talk about a lot on this show because the Heartland Institute is one of the YouTube channels that has been very badly embattled for a long time at this point. So we're definitely shifting gears here. Ohio Representative Jim Jordan reports that Google has committed to offer creators on YouTube who were previously blacklisted or kicked off a way back onto the platform, especially if they were kicked out for political speech violations. Google admits that they were pressured by the Biden administration directly and specifically to censor speech from particular people surrounding COVID and suspicious activity in the 2020 election. So here's one of the excerpts from a letter from Alphabet that I want to read to you guys. Senior Biden administration officials, including White House officials, conducted repeated and sustained outreach to Alphabet and pressed the company regarding certain user-generated content related to the COVID-19 pandemic that did not violate its policies. While the company continued to develop and enforce its policies independently, Biden administration officials continued to press the company to remove non-violative user-generated content. As online platforms, including Alphabet, grappled with these decisions, the administration's officials, including President Biden, created a political atmosphere that sought to influence the actions of platforms based on their concerns regarding misinformation. It is unacceptable and wrong when any government, including the Biden administration, attempts to dictate how the company moderates content, and the company has consistently fought against those efforts on First Amendment grounds. Yeah, right. All right, so there's a lot of interesting stuff in Jim Jordan's thread on X about it, so I highly recommend that you guys go over there and read it. Jim, this is good news. It shouldn't surprise anyone that this has been the case, but if I may, because I'm always the one, I think, who's a bit more cynical about a lot of these companies on this panel, but if I can be a bit cynical here, this stuff started well before Biden came to power, right? Like, this is not just a problem where they were suddenly being pressured out of nowhere by the Biden administration. There was censorship and suppression of conservative speech even during Trump's first term. So how do we know that they won't go right back to what they were doing before the second that Democrats, God forbid, get back into the White House?
No, we don't know that. And in fact, we can fully expect it. One of the themes I've mentioned on this podcast many times is that the election of Donald Trump, the first time in 2016, broke the brains of so many people in this country. And you see it today, the way people are absolutely, well, you saw it from that we showed the clip of the grandma, trying to decapitate an effigy of Donald Trump with this look of absolute, she's like Gollum, this look or of not Frodo, but Bilbo, when he has that little moment where he goes like that and he just like reverts into this evil thing again. It's like the look in her face. It's unsettling to say the least, somebody's grandma trying to decapitate an effigy of Donald Trump. And so he broke people's brains. But one of the things it also did back in 2016 is that these social media companies, we played this on the podcast a long time ago, and some of our viewers and listeners may remember that Google had a post-election cry-in at their offices. They had a whole staff meeting where they went on and on for like 90 minutes about, how I know that you're all very upset and this is very troubling. And, they were crying and, rending their clothing metaphorically about Donald Trump being elected. And so the people that run our social media, the social media giants, Hollywood and our news media, blamed themselves for this horrible thing that happened, that Donald Trump became president. And they vowed to never, ever let it happen again, that they had the power at their fingertips to stop Trump fascism, but they didn't do it. And so they were going to do it from now on. So yes, you're right. This kind of censorship has been going on for a long time. And in fact, this very channel, for this very podcast, as Andy knows very well, our producer, we got strikes against us for talking about COVID in ways that the government did not approve. We had a video actually struck from our channel all about COVID, which got us in big trouble and almost got us kicked off YouTube forever. And once you get kicked off YouTube, it is forever. They don't even let you come back in and try to change your name and come in with a new channel. They'll sniff that out, and you're busted for good. So they created this atmosphere of fear, and if you said the wrong thing, you would be silenced. And and a lot of people we don't make money because we're still demonetized on here. And even when we did, it was very little revenue that we would generate when we were monetized. But there are a lot of conservative commentators who make their living making content for YouTube. And where's their restitution from Google after putting them out of business for the last 4 years? And this story really needs to be, I've kind of rolled my eyes, especially, no offense, at Jim Jordan, because all we ever get are hearings and a bunch of argle-bargle and yelling and screaming at people, and then nothing ever happens. And in reality, really, nothing has really happened here, except that they have apparently coerced Google's attorneys to lay out in a letter exactly how they violated the First Amendment rights of half of this country at the behest of the President of the United States or the White House. That's kind of a big deal. But you are right, Linnea. You are not too cynical. They will go right back to this if and when, and it's when, Democrats get the White House and control of the bureaucracy once again. So it's nice to know what we already knew. Mark Zuckerberg went on Joe Rogan's show and said it and laid it flat out. Every single social media company and content platform was censoring non-leftist voices at the behest of the government. That is actual violation of First Amendment rights, not Donald Trump calling CNN fake news.
Well, this brings to mind Section 230. If Section 230 was passed in 1997 so that these platforms could have anyone say anything and they would not be held liable, then why are they, years after the fact, saying we're going to take it down because we could be held liable? That makes no sense. So I really do think that it is time to readdress Section 230. I think that has been completely used and abused. But I also wonder if this would ever have happened had Elon Musk not bought Twitter. I will go back to that as the, for lack of a better word, turning point here, because that did serve as a tipping point in which people then could say, wait a second, here's what's going on. Twitter is, doing all these things. Google's doing all these things. YouTube's doing all these things. And there was evidence. There was flat out evidence that was pointing the finger at it. I kind of go two ways on this, because so if Google was doing this during Trump's presidency, but Trump himself wasn't saying to do it, well, then I guess they do have the right to do that. However, if they're doing it at the discretion of the Biden administration, then obviously that's a big no-no. That is a violation of free speech. So there was both things going on here, because Google even admitted that, hey, some of the stuff we took down and some of the stuff that we censored, Biden administration didn't even want us to do it. We just did it on our own volition. So shame on Google for doing that. But I do think that we are in a better place. I do think that a lot of the things that have been happening for 8 years now with these social media companies, throttling accounts and such is probably going to stop, and that's a great thing. So it's and just to almost like hurt my own argument here. There is the case to be made that these platforms, they can do whatever they want. Okay, yeah, they can. They are free. They are open to do whatever they want. However, you can't have it both ways. You can't have that Section 230 liability. You can't have the Communications Decency Act cover you for all these things, but then at the same time say, hey, we're going to get rid of this. So they are trying to have it both ways.
Yeah, I want to hear from Andy, because he's been on, the front lines fighting for Heartland's monetization and all of that, and we've gotten some ringers on the for like the kind of things that we get struck down for are so innocuous all the time that it's just ridiculous. Andy.
Well, yeah. It was when Jim said, like, as Andy knows, like, our channels have been demonetized or suppressed, and I've been on the front of trying to end that, sometimes successfully, sometimes not so much. But it's really amazing how they do it and how little information they give you. And that's the key for how they can take a channel like ours, suppress it permanently, and make it nigh impossible to recover it. So let me just kind of describe how they've done it to us on YouTube, just as an example here. We have thousands. I don't know the number off the top of my head. I probably could have looked it up in the last few minutes, but we have thousands of videos on YouTube. And eventually one day we'll just get a strike on our channel, and it'll say, well, either when we apply for monetization or just something that they consider so large, which has happened to us, that it's like a general channel strike. And they'll give us a general topic area. So for us, it's been hateful content. It first happened, I believe, during COVID. That was Facebook, yeah. But it'll say hateful or misinformation, and they won't tell you what video. They won't even tell you what topic area. So they won't say if it's related towards a gym rant or something we said about climate change or anything. And they just say you are allowed to reapply in 90 days after you make changes to your channel. Okay, Jim just said 2,600 videos after you make changes to your channel that satisfy these terms. So we've reapplied many times, but we can't make changes because we don't know which of these 2,600 videos they take issue with. So after a while, our channel has gotten big enough to this point where we are given direct access to YouTube's customer support. And first they send me to a bot. I chat with the bot for a while. Then they send me to a person who says they can't help me. And I just get angry long enough, frankly, that they send me to their manager. And then the manager will finally my request every single time is, I will do whatever you guys want. Just tell me what videos you take issue with so I can delete the sections or delete the videos and restore the channel. I am willing to play ball. It's literally where they've beaten me down into at this point. And they'll say, oh, okay, we have to send it to our internal review team. That'll take 2 weeks. And then they can figure out what the issue is and tell. So they'll do that. And then they switch you off the chat into email. And then they slowly change where the window is to oh yeah, no, we're not going to tell you what the issue is. We're just going to help you reapply for monetization or reinstate your channel until they eventually completely just change from what they originally said they were going to help you with. And this has happened multiple times now, and deny you again. So the entire system is made, even for someone like a channel like ours that has access to support, to never resolve any issue. And once they decide to put that strike on you, it is permanent. It is forever. You cannot beat them.
I'm going to play.
Why we have great sponsors like Advisor Metals helping support shows like these in the background, not related towards YouTube. Thank you to them. All right, I just wanted to jump in and chime in with that. If you have any questions for me, go for it. But yeah,
just can't help myself here. Got to play devil's advocate just a little bit here. So YouTube is a private company. The Heartland Institute does not have a right to have videos on that entity. That is up to them. The thing with Jimmy Kimmel and this whole free speech thing, I think, has been grossly taken out of context here, because the government did not go to ABC and say take him off the air. That never happened. That was a business decision on behalf of ABC and the affiliates. Same with YouTube and same with Google, except when the Biden administration went to Google and said, hey, take this stuff down. So as a free speech absolutist, if YouTube says, you know what, we just don't want to put what you're saying on our platform, I'd say, well, that's really sad, and you're going to lose out on half the market, because theoretically half the people in this country want to hear what one side has to say. But if they choose to do that, that is their own choice, and I don't really think it's a free speech argument. We can have arguments as to whether it's a good business decision, yes or no, but I do want to make that nuanced point.
I strongly agree with you on the YouTube side. Honestly, as annoying as it is, I kind of agree with where you're coming from. With Kimmel, I strongly disagree. Everyone's kind of saying that ABC or not the FCC. Here's what the FCC did. The chair, Brendan Carr or something, went on some popular podcast with 5.4.
But once again, that's an indirect thing. That's him saying something.
It's an indirect thing. But he indirectly went on there and then threatened ABC. But the FCC doesn't actually have the power to do that. What he literally did do though was say we're going to threaten the licenses of the stations that show Kimmel. And what next happened is Sinclair and Nexstar, which are the two station group owners, which are the people that actually have the licenses, pulled Kimmel. And everyone says, see, it wasn't even like ABC, it was these stations. So like it has nothing to do with the threat, but the threat was actually directed towards those groups. And whether or not they took direct, well, let me finish here. Whether or not he actually like took direct action, I am not okay with a government official going on putting word out into the public. It says like, hey, we are going to do this either the easy way or the hard way, which is what his words were, threaten the station groups, and then have people claim, see, they didn't actually take any direct action, but they threatened them. The government threatened private companies for the outcome that they wanted, got that outcome, and then went on Fox News and said, Nexstar and Sinclair, and this is days after, seems like they did this because they want to protect their licenses, which is exactly what the threat was. So I don't see this as a free speech issue. I see this as a gross misuse of government power, and I strongly disagree with you on that.
The original law that established the FTC, the Communications Act, gave them authority to ensure that all broadcast material, all broadcast providers are fair and decent, and they have the authority to do that, and they still have that authority. What's interesting here is that what Carr did was state openly that we have this authority and we are going to follow the law and we are going to enforce the law. That and what happened then, though, was that was very different from what the Biden administration did, which was go to companies that were not covered by the Communications Act. They were not covered under the law as having to operate in the public interest. Companies that get spectrum from the government have to operate in the public interest. That's the law. If you don't like it, change the law. But for an administration to enforce the law is actually what their job is. That's what they're supposed to do. What the Biden administration did was they went and jawboned companies that were not under this law, and they did it in secret. So this is a completely different situation. I don't say that necessarily the FTC or FCC was right to do this, but I do say they had the right and they should actually follow the law. If that's what the law says, then they should do it. And I believe that is what they were doing. They are following the law. Again, if you don't like it, change the laws. Good luck with that.
I want to get Ian's take on all of this, especially as it pertains to like social media and YouTube and stuff, because I know that, Gen Z and, especially younger millennials and stuff, we get, and even like Jim, I know you're in this group too, get most of their news, most of their entertainment, even from places like YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, whatever. So I want to hear what your take is on this, Eann.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was really interesting on legal debate. I made up my mind not to go to law school, so I can't really say anything here, not the expert. First off, I want to say though, like Jimmy Kimmel, like as a Gen Zer, there's another term for us, right, called as Zoomers, because we went through the whole Zoom generation, and really, I don't really know any Gen Zers that still watches Jimmy Kimmel. Like, I'm serious, but I will want to call out two people. First is Hassan Piker, and then also Destiny. And to tie back to our previous topic, like these two people, it's kind of crazy how Heartland, we just question COVID, we question climate change, and then our channel is like completely demonetized. But you will get Hassan Piker and Destiny. For those that don't know, these two are basically the liberal versions of Charlie Kirk. Like they are what the leftists, the progressive, the far left are following on social media and are looking up to. These two on their social media, on stream, would like vocally advocate for killing of conservatives. I couldn't find a clip. Maybe YouTube is hiding it for Hassan, but there's literally a Hassan Piker clip out there. Go to Twitter to look up, go to X to look it up. But of him calling like for the killing of renters, and you get Destiny saying that like conservatives need to be afraid after the Charlie Kirk assassination. Like it's just like crazy to me. And then also as someone who was like formerly liberal, I'll weigh in on that a little bit later. But the point I'm trying to make is that when I first turned conservative, I was like, yeah, I don't want to be those crazy conservatives. I want to I don't want to be like watching Fox News, watching like fake news, right? So I really follow a lot of those like community guidelines, or what are they called, like the fact checkers on YouTube, Instagram, and then like it turns out all of those fact checkers are really just like opinion checkers, and yeah, and then so that's why really Gen Zers like me, we don't really care about like Jimmy Kimmel or like traditional media or like on social media. And like just like what Chris said, when Elon really took over X, it was really the turning point. And then like I remember they were talking about how there were like some CNN reports on how like the conservatives have to build like an alternative to everything. Like we have Truth Social as the alternative to Twitter, and then we even have Dave Wright stuff as like a conservative version of Tinder. Like we need, in the past, we literally need to build like a conservative alternative of every social media platform out there. That's how far the censorship went. And it's just crazy how really why these leftists are so violent is because you got like literal liberal version of Charlie Kirk saying that we need to go out and kill conservatives. We need to be violent. And they're still monetized, like they're still streaming every day. But then Heartland, I can't even question whether I don't want to eat Beyond Meat or what.
Yeah, well, and Piers Morgan had Destiny on shortly after the Charlie Kirk assassination, and Destiny said something along the lines of, "This is what conservatives get for electing Trump." And it's like, okay, so this guy gets to be, I guess he hasn't been platformed on Twitch for a while, but yeah, it's pretty terrible. So I'm glad. Sorry, I heard someone else say something.
I was just going to say that I don't think that those people are really representative of the left in general. So I don't think it's truly fair to like say that they represent the vast majority of like leftist views. I think that they are a small vocal minority. Just going back to the Google censorship stuff, because that's what this was originally about. I also remember, and after the Biden administration was doing all that stuff, there was all this talk about, well, hey, conservative places, why don't you just set up your own platforms? And what happened I didn't do it, but when they were tried, Amazon Web Services said, yeah, we're not going to host you. And I mean, there were so many other things that were so many other intrusions in place. So this idea that you just go make your own conservative Twitter, go make your own conservative YouTube or Google or whatever. Yeah, that argument left the door a long time ago, because these companies are total monopolies. They have 90+% of the market cornered. So we are way beyond going and starting a new platform to have conservative actually have a fair chance at putting their stuff out there. Just wanted to throw that out.
Yeah, I mean, Parler went from being the most downloaded app on iOS and Android to being deleted from existence within a span of 7 days, because of the power the left and holds over big tech. And just one more point on this whole thing about YouTube and you mentioned this, Chris, and I used to do tech policy for Heartland when I first started with Heartland back in 2008. Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, it protects tech companies from liability because of what somebody may put on their platforms, but they have to pledge to be an open platform. Yeah. Once you start deciding who gets this speech is not good, I don't like it, we're going to get rid of it. You're no longer you're moving away from being a platform of communications to being a publisher of communications, and there is a very important distinction legally between those two categories, and that's why YouTube and Facebook and all the others have an obligation under the law that was passed by Congress to act as platforms, not publishers. And again, once you start getting into that idea that a Heartland Institute video talking about COVID in ways that the government does not approve is worthy of not just a reprimand or maybe a note saying be careful, but to have your channel threatened with its very existence, and then having the video completely struck. It's still I can go find it in the background. I look at it once in a while. It was completely struck from they just deleted it. and so it can't be used again. There's a big difference on that. Then, it's just important to mention that context of the law when it comes
100%. So when someone sends an op-ed to me and I pitch it to a publisher, whether it's American Thinker, Red State, The Hill, or whatever, they have the ability to say, yeah, we want that. No, we don't want that, because they have editorial discretion over what's going on to their platform, their website. Under the law, the 1997 law, when the internet was first, coming of age, they didn't want to have any of that, because they didn't want, they wanted to have a very innovative, entrepreneur-driven environment. Here we are now, 30 years later, and it looks like that might need to be looked at again. And I have heard that I think Jim Jordan and Kash Patel have already started saying that, yeah, we do need to reform Section 230. It's 30 years later, and it's not the same environment. So I think that would be a big help.
Yep, absolutely.
Eann? Sorry, I would like to jump in and reply to Chris for real quick. Like, I'm not saying that, like, of course I believe that the people who are violent are like a very small minority on the left, but if for people in my generation, if you actually follow Hassan Piker or Destiny, they are like the biggest figure on the left right now. And then I think we can all agree on this, that the left is really getting more far left, right? Like, I have a lot of liberal friends who are saying that they just can't identify as a liberal anymore, because they just can't support whatever that's coming. That's like whatever rhetoric that's being used on the left. But I would like to add that Charlie Kirk's murder, it happened not because the left all wanted him to die, but because they basically fostered this environment by calling him a Nazi, and by having these two, by having Hassan Piker and Destiny constantly pushing these violent rhetoric. And I think it's like we have to point out the fact that every time when there's like far right on the right, like doing something stupid, like the Proud Boys, January 6th, whatever, on the right, first thing we have to do is to condemn them. But whenever it's on the left, you'll always get like we need to tone it down a little bit, and killing people is wrong, but Charlie Kirk is hateful, but he's pro Second Amendment, so he got killed, he got his own medicine. So I think I want to really point this out, because Hassan Piker and Destiny, these are really big figures on the Gen Z. Like, all of the people I know who are liberal follows him, even if they are not like far left. So that's something I'd like to point out.
No, you are totally right about that. And this goes back to a meme that I think Elon Musk kind of popularized a couple of years ago, where it's like the left here, and then like here's everybody else. And I really do. I agree with you. I think that is very, very true. And I go back to mid-90s Democrats under the Clinton administration. They were very moderate. They believed in, hey, if you want welfare, you should work. We should have, a balanced budget. We should have, closed borders. Like, yes, I totally agree with you. So I do think that is a big threat, and it's something that we need to have to definitely deal with, because Eann, there are millions of people in your generation who are going to be leaders and voters, and they are our future. And if they are buying this left-wing crap, well then I don't feel very optimistic about the future. So, but then again, I see someone like you who has made that transformation, and I am also confident. So I don't know, I can see both sides of this one for sure.
Yeah,
I'm
speaking of
this meme. But then I'm literally this meme, but I started running to the right in 2021, and now you can't even see me on the spectrum. It's kind of a joke.
So speaking of that, our final topic, and I know we're running late here, you guys. It's not in the tank if we don't start late, and it's not in the tank if we don't run late. But our main topic today that I wanted to get to was actually kind of interviewing Eann on a lot of this stuff, Gen Z and the future of conservatism. So we're looking at the political future for conservatives. Eann has a great story about how he came to be conservative and what it's like right now on college campuses. In the wake of Charlie Kirk's murder, there was chaos, because in truth, Charlie is irreplaceable as a leader in the young conservative space. No single person has that affability and the suite of, genuine talent that Charlie Kirk had. It's going to be an insanely tough job to keep that momentum that Turning Point USA has built over the last decade. So I want to share this picture, though, from outside of the Charlie Kirk memorial service that was posted by End Wokeness on X. Andy, if we have that picture, that was linked. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So this is from the waiting line outside of Charlie Kirk's memorial service. That's a lot of young people, and they're all motivated to show up to mourn a political figure. I think that this might be somewhat unprecedented. So I want you to tell us what you feel comfortable telling us, Eann. But I wanted to start with this question, which I already know the answer to, but I'm going to let you kind of give the story on it. Were you always conservative?
No. So yeah, like I was born in a very I wouldn't say very, but like my mom's like Christian conservative, my dad's like a businessman, so also like lean right. And then really growing up, I never really had like a sense of like what is on the left and what is on the right. And then I wasn't like, I was like political, I was like into history and stuff, but I wasn't so aware. And then what really introduced me to politics was when Andrew Yang, he started running, right? And I saw like another Asian guy who's running for president, and then he's also Taiwanese, like me actually. And then he has this like policy on UBI that we need to give everyone $1,000. And to put it quite frankly, well, like just like how I mentioned, he's Taiwanese, I'm Taiwanese. Human are tribalistic. So my first instinct was like, yeah, I have to support this guy. And then of course, when I brought up about like the UBI $1,000, my parents thought it's like ridiculous. And then, but then I was just like, yeah, it sounds ridiculous. But then, because back then I had no clue of like really the left, the right. So I was just looking at CNN and like MSNBC's and New York Times. And all of these articles are like justifying like the UBI stuff, because they're saying the rich is not paying enough. And then that like the UBI, like just, yeah, giving out money is good. It boosts the economy, all of that crap, right? And then really it's like Bernie Sanders that jump on, and I saw like, and he's a populist. He's really good at, Bernie Sanders is the smartest capitalist out there because he knows how to manipulate the system without actually bringing the positive side of capitalism out. And then so he's the smartest capitalist out there. But I had no clue back then, right? I was the dumbest I was like the dumbest consumer. He's the smartest capitalist. And then, but what really kind of like radicalized me was when like the whole BLM thing happened. And then I was just like convinced that like America is just racist against minorities, racist against people like me. And then because I was following Bernie Sanders already, and then really the logic of the left is that like everything is evil, the system is evil, everything that needs to, the only solution to everything is that we need like a revolution. Like we need, that's the Marxist angle, right? Of course, I'm not saying like everyone on the left is like this, but the left is heading toward that direction, especially under Bernie Sanders. And then, so that was like kind of like what I believe in. That was what my worldview was about. And then I remember, so like, yeah, still remember this good guy, bad guy. I thought I was in the good guys team. I didn't know there's really left versus right. And then, of course, all of my teachers are like very liberal. And then just to give you guys the context, so I grew up in Taiwan, right? And then I went to like a American accredited international school. So all of my teachers are basically Americans, but they are like far left Americans. Like there's a reason why they don't want to live in the US anymore. Like they hate America. So of course they like hate Trump, and then they're like very pro Bernie, and all of my classmates are also very left leaning. And then there's this issue that I brought up to my friends, which is the issue of abortion. It's not even the economics yet, right? And then basically I just thought like protecting an innocent life in a womb would be a good guy's position. So I brought that out, and then all of my friends just all like flip out on me. Like they got so angry. Like for the first, that's like my first time hearing, how can you as a man tell a woman what to do with their body? That was my first time hearing of it, and I was so confused. And I was like, all right, chill. I'll be pro-choice. But then I was just so confused. And then I click on a Ben Shapiro video, and then that video was like my first introduction to like conservatism. It was like I had no clue how the pro-life argument can be defended this way. I had no clue how there are people who are like on the right doing activism like this. And that's when I get to Charlie Kirk. And then what really woke me up, especially with Charlie Kirk's argument, is that just because there's abuse in the system, just because there is fraud happening in the system, just because there are bad people in the system, doesn't mean the system is inherently bad, and doesn't mean that we have to tear down everything. And in fact, if we go toward that goal, it's extremely dangerous. And then it has tried in like so many countries already. And then just like me being like a Taiwanese, I'm in Taiwan right now. Our greatest enemy is the biggest socialist state in the world. Of course, you're gonna get people saying, "Oh, it's not socialism." But our
it's communism.
It's communism. You're getting there, right? Like, and then that was such a wake up call because my worldview has completely been shattered. And then, so that's really how I became conservative.
Eann, I got a question for you. So I've got a sister who we adopted from China, and she came here when she was about 10 years old, and now she's about 25. She's been here about 15 years, and she's a little bit older than you, but unfortunately she has been indoctrinated by her friends and culture and social media and all that stuff. But I want to ask you something. You said something about your friends saying that America's a racist place, and I don't want to put you in the spot here, but I was just wondering, have you ever personally had someone, you know, throw a racist insult at you? Because I asked my sister that, and she has not. And I do think that does go to show that your current generation really doesn't look at race. They don't care about race. They care more about like, you know, who you are inside. So if you could just answer that.
Yeah, for sure. Like as someone like, and then the story later to the clip you see previously of me thanking Charlie Kirk was me establishing a Turning Point chapter on my campus, right? So I was like really involved with these conservative events, and a lot of times I go to these conservative events, like basically everyone's like white, just like this panel. Like I'm like one of the only few minorities there, right? But I have never felt like in any sort of way that I am ostracized. I am like I'm being hated on, even though people like Destiny Hassan will call the events I go to like Nazi rally, but yeah, Nazi rally, and then they allow an Asian there. Interesting. But then like I've never felt that really. And then really the wake up call is when I see affirmative action. Like if anything, we have systemic racism in reverse, right? And then not just that, I saw a news on how like Washington D.C. has characterized Asians as whites just because Asians do on average do better in school on standardized tests, and then are like wealthier, and then that's like the most racist thing I've ever seen. So really, and I want to add something is that like as the only non-white person here, I can say this, like, you know how like the media like to frame the whole Charlie Kirk murder as like white on white crime? We really do have a white issue, like a white liberal issue, really. As a conservative activist on my campus, really the meanest, craziest, most racist people I've met are white liberals. Like they are telling me like, how can you as an Asian support Trump? Like they're telling me what I should believe in as a minority. And really, I think it goes back to how, this is my opinion, like I think a lot of white people have abandoned the traditional Christian moral values that this country is built on. And so that is why like all the statistics show that like white liberals on average are tremendously more far left than like Latino liberals, Asian liberals, Black liberals. And no one's talking about it. And I think it's a conversation we need to start having if we want to stop having all of these like shootings and anti-conservative crimes.
One of the biggest objectives of the left and under, you know, in the years that I've been alive, and especially as an adult, is identity politics. And I wonder if it's finally starting to come back to bite them, because this younger generation is by far the most diverse. And if they're not buying that crap that the left is pushing, where if you're, a non-white person, then you have to, be a leftist just based on your identity. I think that is really being played out. And I think that we are finally starting to see the end of that. And that is a great thing.
So that, all of that how, in that case, when you're dealing with, crazy people on campus and stuff. So you said that you were working on establishing a Turning Point chapter, I think you said at the University of Illinois. So I'm curious, since you were in a like post-COVID university system, so what was it like then trying to build a conservative, culture on campus there, especially in Illinois, which is obviously not the most conservative place in the world?
Yeah, so before I started my Turning Point chapter, there's like already YAF and all the other conservative groups, right? And then really, before I really started anything, all of these conservative groups are just basically like a social club or like a refuge for conservatives to seek out other conservatives. And then really, initially, I was really questioning, should I do this? Like, should I put myself on the front line? But then I just thought to myself, yeah, there's probably so many more people out there like me who had really no clue of how crazy left-wing politics has become, and who only had a clue of like good guys versus bad guys, right? And then so I decided to do it. And then really, I think I'm like quite lucky because I don't look like the typical Turning Point USA president. Like, I'm not someone like from Nebraska with a big farm and has like AR-15 at my home or something, right? And then I grew up in Taiwan, so even though I am American, I'm very proud American. But then, so in school everywhere, I just tell people, yeah, I'm from Taiwan, and then they probably won't assume much. They won't assume like someone from Taiwan is the biggest conservative activist on our campus. But really, I seriously need to make this prayer all the time. Every time I table on campus, I just pray that the Lord give me wisdom, and then the Lord protect me from whatever crazy that's going to happen. And I really thank God that nothing crazy has gone down. But seriously, you would get people coming out onto your table and throw all of your things on the ground and just say like, F you, you guys are a bunch of like piece of crap, blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, not everyone is like that, but a lot of people talking about the murder of Charlie Kirk, there's literally people who come up to me saying it like, how can, like, we should like Charlie Kirk, right? And then like, yeah, but at the same time, really the biggest relief I've seen is that people coming up to me saying, thank you for doing this. Like, people coming up to me saying, yo, you're the man, like, you're doing this in Illinois, like, I'll never do this, but thank you for doing it. And when Trump won, I need to bring this up, because when Trump won, I'm a political science major, and like political science major professors are very conservative, right? And then you was like very liberal, right? And then really, when Trump won, I got an email from every professor saying, I know a lot of you are distressed, and then you guys don't need to come to class today. And then I'll be honest with you, a lot of times I'm the type of person that skip class, or there's something called an iClicker, basically how we take attendance, and I'll do that from my bedroom so that I don't need to go to class. But then when I saw that email, I was like, I have to go to class, even if attendance is optional. And really, the whole class is such a group therapy session. Really, you get all of these like people freaking out, asking the craziest question, like, yeah, like, is Trump gonna put me in jail for visiting Planned Parenthood or something like that? And then my conservative friends and I, we're just in the back enjoying all of this. As I've said, I think I'm extremely lucky that I didn't have to go through like, the 2015 era, the COVID era. I went through the era where Trump became president and where conservatism is really on the rise. So I felt like extremely lucky, especially the fact that I've never been into any crazy situations where like I get hurt or anything. But of course, there's a bunch of nasty people out there, and then if the left wants to say that I'm playing victim, whatever. Like, unlike you guys, I'm not asking for reparations, right? I'm actually thankful that it happened because it made me a tougher person. Like, as Charlie Kirk said, we know that Gen Z are going to become more conservatives because conservatives, Gen Zs, are way tougher than Gen Z liberals. And then one more thing to add is that I need to show this because I actually become way more conservative when I fully accepted my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ into my heart in college. And then like, of course, going into college, as a young man, there's you will have like a lot of evil intentions that you want to do, like first time your parents are not around. But really, God has rescued me, and yeah, I just become like, I'm probably on the far right now, but all that means is that I'm just a Catholic.
Eann, I like where you've gone with this discussion, and I'd like to ask you a question. Do you think it possible or likely or somewhere in between that had there not been Turning Point America, that you would have found your way into the right anyway?
I think eventually I'm going to make my way to the right. Like I always try to be like open-minded. Like I'll say, like my ideologies now have changed a lot, even since when I was like first conservative, and then I try to like learn more as I can. But then I would say though, like I don't think I'll really be involved in any conservative politics at all if it weren't for Turning Point, if it weren't for the platform I had. And then like I even made it to Fox News at one point, and it was all because of Turning Point. And really, I still can't believe, like saying this now, I still can't believe Charlie Kirk is gone. But the day that he got shot, the day he passed away, I straight up went to church because I can't focus at all. And thank you, Jim and Andy, for letting me to take my day off. I went to church because I can't even do work at all. I was in such shock. But then I made this prayer to God, saying that, Lord, I don't need anything Charlie Kirk has. I know he has a beautiful wife, family. He has so many money. Like he has so much money. Extremely successful guy. I don't need anything he has, but just make me a vessel of yours. Make me someone that you will use Charlie Kirk for. And yeah, that has like Charlie Kirk's death has radicalized me in a lot more ways, because now that I know it's not just like a simple left versus right. Like we are really dealing with spiritual evils, right? And as Jim, I remember mentioned a Bible verse, we do not wrestle with flesh and blood, but spirits and principalities. And a lot of these left-wing people, like they seriously need Jesus. And then really coming closer to God has actually let me get rid of my hatred in my heart. Like in the past, I would like want vengeance against these people, but really I see a lot of times, I see these people just like me in the past. And then sometimes I'm not even any better. I'm still a sinner, right?
Thank you so much for that, Eann. We're running over, but I want to keep this going a little bit if you guys are all okay with it. We have so much to talk about.
We have to ask Eann. It's past 2 a.m. in Taiwan right now, isn't it?
I am having so much fun. Like I can do this until 2 p.m. Like yeah.
All right. Well, okay. So I have this. So it's funny to hear that basically nothing changed at all between your college experience and when I left college. I also was in college during an election of Donald Trump. And when I got to campus that day in Wyoming, and it was a more conservative campus than most places. Of course, anything having to do with like the student government was super liberal. Anything having to do with most of the professors and stuff were still super liberal. But it was kind of like they were aware that they were not in comfortable territory in terms of the like town that they were in and stuff. So it usually didn't go too bad, although someone did firebomb the GOP office shortly after Trump was elected. So that was not so good. And we did have an Antifa contingent that was bussed up from Colorado. So that was an interesting little bit there. But it's interesting to hear you say that like they're tearing up signs when you're tabling, or they're like destroying your stuff and stuff, because even at Wyoming, that was the same thing. You know, you sat down with college Republicans gear to try to get new members and whatnot, and some crazy lefty would come over and like tear your signs up or kick over your cardboard cutout of Trump or whatever it is. And it's always the same. But what really struck me was when Turning Point came on the scene in a big way at our school, the enthusiasm and the just joy and everything that poured off of them was quite different than what you would get from college Republicans, which I was in, or Young Americans for Liberty, or any of those other organizations, we all were a little bit more cynical and quite a bit more reserved. But Turning Point came on the scene and kicked it up several notches instantly. They had the best marketing stuff. They had the most fun ideas. Instead of just tabling and doing like, we believe in free speech posters or whatever, they had this giant inflatable ball that everyone would write on with Sharpie marker, write whatever you want on it, to get like students engaged in just like free speech in general. They had so much fun, and it completely changed the attitude of all of the organizations on campus. It's crazy how one group really standing up and deciding like, no, we're right and we're going to have fun with it, completely changes everything. But I wanted to say that the organization and their example and everything is so inspiring, and I really hope that it's continuing. So what have you heard much from your colleagues or from your friends back in college and stuff at Turning Point? Where is it heading from here?
Yeah, even though like just like Linnea, like the whole environment where like the people who are still in charge of universities are still very left-leaning. And then, of course, I think it's like very tragic that we are seeing more and more violence here. But it's also a sign because we're winning. I remember Matt Walsh had a tweet saying that like the whole transgender thing is like really collapsing, and then that's because and we need to be very careful of that, because those people, the only resort they have left is violence. And then I remember a few days later, Charlie Kirk got killed. And then, but really, if anyone who has seen the memorial of Charlie Kirk, there is nothing but like just hope in that arena. And then the reason why I keep bringing up my faith so much, I'm sorry to turn in the Tang into EWTN or something, and not to go full Billy Graham here, but really the message of Charlie Kirk, like people will not just remember him as like another conservative, another right-wing pundit. He has done more for Christians than anyone I can really think of, than any Catholics. As a Catholic, like he's not a Catholic, right? But he's done more to bring people to a church than really any Catholics. And then I think it's really important to note that, like, as Christians, the reason why I keep stressing my faith so much is because our reward is not on earth, our reward is in heaven. And to like a lot of people who might be afraid of speaking up, like my biggest encouragement to you is that like we are in such good times already. Like we weren't in times like 2012 or 2018 where like liberalism was really the dominant culture. Like we are in times where we are seeing record level of church attendance. We are seeing like really just record level of conservative. This is the most conservative generation in 50 years. And then beyond just conservatism, like they talk about how culture dominates politics. And I'll add one more to that. Like religion really dominates culture. And then we are really seeing a revival of Christians. And then for my Turning Point chapter, when I started the Instagram account for my Turning Point chapter, we were at like 200 followers for the longest of time. All the liberal, like YDSA, like Democrats, they had like over 1,000 followers. But just now, like our Instagram account has like surpassed both of them. We are like the biggest political student organization account. We are at like 2,500 or something, like almost basically 1,000 more than the liberal accounts. So really, we are like we need to be hopeful right now, and then be hopeful in the sense that not just like wait and expect things to go all well in your way, like everything's sunshine and rainbow. No, in fact, everything is going to be more tornado and tsunami. But then it's okay, because even if we don't have anyone, we have God, right? And then really this generation, I've met so many of my friends who not just went from liberal to conservatives, but also like me, who really started going to church and became Christian, became Catholics. And yeah, I just can't thank God enough. And then really Charlie Kirk, without him, I could not see any of this being possible at all.
I want to get to Jim here for a second. I think he has some commentary he wanted to get in.
Yeah. I mean, I just wanted to, first of all, congratulate Eann for his courage. I mean, it used to be that you, as a young person, you had to have the courage to lose friends or not be seen as cool, or maybe pay a social cost for, countering the liberal orthodoxy on everything and all the cool opinions. So, but now being a conservative as a young person on a college campus, you could pay with your life for that, literally. I mean, it just happened 2 weeks ago. So it takes physical courage to be a conservative now, not just moral courage. And second, Linnea, you mentioned how at the University of Wyoming, you said the college Republican office was, assaulted or attacked or something? Or
yeah, someone threw a Molotov cocktail into our GOP office downtown.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So in Laramie, Wyoming. Yeah. And, so this also points out, and that was, like you said, that was almost a decade ago. This points out the absolute lie that both sides are engaging in political violence in this country. And that's why it really triggers me so much. I mean, this has been going back for literally decades. Ann Coulter tried to give a speech at UC Berkeley, and a freaking riot broke out, and she had to be, spirited away by the police to protect her physical safety. Riley Gaines went to give a speech at a university, I forget which one, and she had to be, again, spirited away by police and locked into a room where the radical leftists were pounding on it. They wanted her blood. This was, a year ago? Ben Shapiro, this happens to him. I know Eann follows him. This happens to him when he tries to speak on college campuses. Michael Knowles, another person from the Daily Wire, he gave a talk at my alma mater, University of Pittsburgh, which is why I will never, ever, ever give Pitt a dime of money as an alumni, because Michael Knowles gave a speech there. There was a physical assault on him, trying to prevent him from speaking. A campus cop was severely injured in this attack. And these things go on and on and on. This is not a both sides thing. Everybody knows it. All right? Everybody knows this. And do not put up with the media and your friends or people on social media pretending otherwise. And it doesn't matter what any of these rigged bullshit studies on political violence that we see being shopped around right now. We know what we see with our own eyes. We know our own lived experience, as the left likes to say, what is going on in this country. And what is going on in this country is that radical leftists who are now, for the first time in decades, starting to understand what it's like to not have complete power over the culture, the politics, the media, and everything. And they are freaking out, and they are being triggered to commit real acts of violence and even kill people who disagree with them, because they cannot deal with the idea that the majority of this country doesn't want them controlling every freaking thing in our society anymore. So Eann, again, I congratulate you. I admire your courage and your journey, and to talk about it publicly on this podcast, because it unfortunately really does take physical courage, like it's never taken it before, to be an out loud speaking conservative in this country, especially if you're a young person and happen to come across a college campus.
At the Heartland Institute, we don't really dive much into religious, stuff. But, as a student of history, the founding fathers knew that virtue was an essential trait for a country to flourish. And, the Judeo-Christian values that the country was founded upon have been disregarded for a very long time. And I'm not here to say that one religion or one sect has it all right or anything, but I am very glad to see this spiritual reawakening that's happening, especially in young people, because it gives them a reason for being. It gives them something to fight for. It gives them something that's greater than themselves. It helps them to reject the leftist crap like envy and jealousy and all that kind of stuff. The United States was founded on Judeo-Christian values. Individual freedom, liberty, and all that stuff is virtuous. The opposite of it in which, the ends justify the means, and the good, the good of the society trumps the good of the person. That's immoral. That's not virtuous. So I am very glad to see that people in Eann's, cohort are starting to make that connection here, because there is a connection between virtue and liberty and dignity and working hard and all those kinds of stuff. And the left, I don't like to make this so much of a cultural thing, but a lot of the views that they espouse, especially in the modern iteration of them, it's not based on virtue. It's based on hatred. It's based on evil. It's based on wickedness. So, I know that there's a fine line between public policy and spirituality and all that kind of stuff. But as the founder said, and as many wise men throughout history have said, those two things are intertwined, and it's just very good to see that connection is looks like it's being refastened here.
Sam, I want to get to your thoughts on this before we slowly start to close out.
Thanks, Linnea. Some very smart commentators like James Kunstler have characterized the American left of our time, and especially the Democrat Party. And I don't want to be partisan here, but that's what they're saying. They characterize them as something of a critical conspiracy, a criminal gang, and that the whole thing is a matter of grabbing power that really in non-legitimate ways. Well, criminal gangs do things like running protection rackets and the like, and selling all kinds of horrible things like maybe pharmaceuticals that harm people and the like, injections that are not good for you. So they run these conspiracies to raise money. They run these criminal activities. And what happens, though, is that as long as you cooperate, you're safe. As long as you pay off the protection racket, you're safe. But the moment you push back, the moment you say, no, this is not happening anymore, they get violent. And I think that's the step that we've reached at this point. That certainly the left has seen that their power is going away, and that their ability to make money and get resources and get the things that they want out of life in the way that they've been doing is going away. And it's making them violent. And they're using thugs all over. They're using thugs to create anarcho-tyranny in order to cow the customers, us, the business people, the small business people, us, into giving in. And there's only one way to deal with that, and you have to fight back through the law.
Yep. Eann, I want to end on you with this question. Okay, what would your number one, kind of set of advice be to other young conservatives who are probably pretty scared right now?
First thing, I would say, really to seek God, because when I really, just like what I said, when I first got into it, I was also I'm not violent, just clear the air first. But of course, when you're in such a toxic environment, when you're I have 150 people that follow me, I have friends, people who will never talk to me again. My teacher, high school teacher, has blocked me on Instagram, Facebook, and then really it's really easy for you to become nihilist. It's really easy for you to become just constantly angry at everyone. And so really my advice is seek God. I'm not trying to be all Billy Graham right here, but really human beings, we are not just a mistake in the universe, right? I'm here sharing this message for a purpose. And then really our soul, we need to take care of our soul first if we want to spread out the right message. And really I was the toughest thing, really the strongest thing anyone can do is really to forgive. So when I saw Erica Kirk at the memorial saying that I forgave the shooter, I teared up so much. And then it was I don't even think I'm able to do that, even though it's the right thing to do. And really, when you have God in your heart, you have a lot more courage, because just like what I said, our reward is not on earth, it's in heaven. And then, in fact, Jesus said that if they hated you because they hated me first, like, I want to first warn all Gen Z conservatives out there that it's never going to be like fair game to us. Really, I've this is a fact that I've only recently accepted, that no matter how back we are, no matter like if we get Vance after Trump and then DeSantis after Vance, Tosi after Vance, if we like have a complete, even if we have a complete dominant Republican government, I just feel like we will never like have it fair, because the world was just like ultimately against Christ, right? And then really, and also like everything before that, so like conservatism, nationalism, patriotism, like standing for life. And you will always feel like you're being unfairly treated. Like, I feel like for a while I've really resented my friends, because I feel like why are you guys always picking on me? Why are you guys always asking me, wanting to have debates with me? I just want to hang out. But then I eventually realized that like it's good that they're asking you questions, because even if they might disagree, it's going to plant a seed in their heart. And really, like, we are never going to have it fair, but it's okay. That's what it's meant to be. And then my second advice is, so first advice, seek God. Second advice is that we don't have to be like go full on like destroy the libs, like, but we need to be truthful to our beliefs. And then really, because for a lot of people, I have a lot of conservative friends, they would just say liberal stuff in class just because they are afraid. But once there's a first person that starts saying anything that's like on the conservative side, people will start really expressing their true beliefs. People won't just be saying stuff so that they can get a better grade, or saying stuff so that people around them won't hate them. And it's okay that like you do it in a more like subtle way. Like, for example, when we are discussing about taxes in one of my political philosophy class, like the common commies would talk about, the world is so unfair, we need redistribution, right? But then my approach would be like, think of taxes as like a service fee that we pay for the road, service fee we pay for the military, for the public university we go to. And that would be like my approach in trying to strive common ground. And of course, at times, if you are really pressed on your morals, then absolutely stand for your faith. And then if people will turn on you just because of what you believe is right, what you believe will make the world a better place, then they are never truly your friends. And so, my two advice: first, seek God. Second advice, never be afraid of your belief. You don't have to go full on Charlie Kirk, destroy liberal students on blah, 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 but be honest, and then you're not going to regret it.
Linnea, can I make one last thing? Because Eann, he brings up many good points, and I've been in this world for a long time. Jim's been in this world much longer than me, Sam Karnick as well. But one of the things, sorry guys, just trying to show how much wisdom you have. But one of the things that I have noticed over the years is that when you approach someone who doesn't agree with you, but you approach them with kindness and with understanding, and you listen to them, that helps a lot. So it's just something that I've been better at over the years. And I'm sure we all have situations where families are coming over and someone says something, and maybe years ago where I would have really tried to like quote unquote own the libs on that. I think I have moved from that position. And one of the reasons why is because of what Charlie Kirk and Erica Kirk, and how they do have that just, good attitude. And they didn't wish, I don't wish harm upon people that I disagree with. One of my best friends from high school, we're still best friends to this day. He and I don't agree on anything, but we have conversations and we listen to each other. We do it in a thoughtful manner. I hope that becomes more the norm rather than the exception.
Thank you, guys. I think that's all we got for today, after going 44 minutes over. But I think it was all worth it. I don't think that we wasted a single minute here. I Man, thank you guys so much for being here. Everyone who bore with us these almost 2 hours, we are live every single week on Thursdays at noon Central on Rumble, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. I want to go around the panel and see if anybody has anything to pitch this week. Chris, do you have anything?
Bears victory on Sunday.
All right. Jim?
Yeah, see us here, same time, same channel, maybe not quite as long for the Climate Realism Show tomorrow.
Awesome. Sam?
At stkarnic.substack.com and the heartland.org website.
And Eann, what have you got for us?
I plan on starting a YouTube channel, not just to share my political beliefs, but then I want to share my faith, and I want to do all sort of things to challenge myself. And then, of course, thank you to Heartland for bringing me on. It's been an honor, really a big honor. You guys have no clue how thankful I am to be part of this institution. So go to Advisory Medal, Climate Realism Show, the Advisory Medal, right? Support Heartland, and especially we are demonetized on YouTube. And yeah, it's been great to be here. And then I would love to come on and chat, share my thoughts of young people if there's ever a chance.
Absolutely. We'd love to have you back again, Eann. And we did not pay him to say all that nice stuff. So for our audio listeners, please rate us well on whatever service that you are using. Leave us a review. Thank you guys so much, everybody, all of our usual panelists who are here, and everybody who stuck with us through this long show. But we will see you guys again next week. Having a little bit of trouble.